I actually had thought about that with my first MacBook, and I bought a battery before they stopped selling them.
Yeah, that would have been a good idea.
I just had it in a box.
I still think I could probably get it replaced at this point, but I don't know where to start. So.
There's a way. So you still have your old MacBook?
It still works as long as it's plugged into the wall. It's like super, it's incredibly slow, and you can't run the brand new operating systems on it. But I mean, it's functional laptop. But if I'm typing, if I'm writing something,
yeah,
I'll write, and then it'll be like just lag, and then like a paragraph will pop up, and then I've got to go back through and pick through all the.
Oh my God,
changes and
that
stuff.
sounds painful.
But it's having a laptop versus not having a laptop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you use Microsoft Word? Hello? Thomas, no blooper reel, thank you.
Hello? Halfway through the podcast, hello?
So do you use Microsoft Word?
I use it a little bit. It depends. You obviously have to change everything you do into Doc or DocX anyways.
Yeah.
Because Pages or whatever is not compatible with anything.
If I would recommend something, it would be to use Google Drive. Do you use Word on Google Drive? It's
I do
epic.
now.
Yeah, you do now?
Yeah. Well,
the best.
I use it exclusively.
Me too.
I lost a lot of things because my laptop got stolen when I was away.
Oh.
So when I said I bought my brand new $2,000 laptop, that one was actually stolen. And now I'm back to using my old one.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you. Yeah, yeah.
So on the one I have now, I used it for school, so I have Word on it. The other one, I was just using Pages.
Oh.
Yeah, but now I kind of had the fear of putting everything up on the Google Drive because I had like all these things I'd written, and then I had a few of them backed up on like an actual hard drive. But yeah, not as many files as I would have liked to have saved.
Yeah.
Yeah, when that happened.
So you don't want to put your stuff on the Google Drive, not everything.
Just tentative to do it. Yeah, I don't 100% trust internet security.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I degree.
My boss is like that.
Yeah.
And he works for a tech company, which I find bizarre.
I think if you're aware of like everything that people are capable of doing with a computer, it kind of gives you pause to putting everything on there.
Yeah, I kind of blindly trust it, but yeah, I don't think
that's the whole Snapchat debate of what do you send on Snapchat, and if all of the things you sent on Snapchat were to surface, how would you deal with that?
Yeah,
and most people just kind of like, well, I just hope that day never comes.
Exactly. You just hope, you trust. If I was Snapchat, I would probably keep it all.
Oh, sure, it's all backed up somewhere. Yeah.
I don't know why that sounds evil, but just in case there's a scenario where you need it. If your back's against the wall, you're being treated unfairly, and like the only choice is to blackmail. I don't know. Well, I can't think of a good scenario.
When is that the only choice for a company?
What if they're being like, I don't know, mistreated? I can't think of a good example, but because it's not like storage space and server space is like
hard to come by. These
days,
no.
Like you can definitely set that up easily. Yeah. So. Yeah, so you said, I remember Trish mentioned once that you like kind of want to live off the grid. Is that true?
It's not completely being off the grid. I mean, I love living in a big city.
Yeah.
I don't know, I love the anonymity of living in a big city, just being one amongst millions of people, because there's so many different lives and stories and things happening all around you. But there is kind of the attractiveness to being out in the middle of nowhere with just kind of yourself to fend. There's a new mini home. I was actually out by the airport by Brad's, and there's a new company, Vagabond Mini Homes. And it's just like these tiny little trailers that you can buy, put on a property, and it's just like a normal stationary trailer would be, long, but it's like half the size. And it's just like a bed, a tiny kitchen. Yeah. And you realize how little you actually need. Like
totally.
Just when I went away the first time, I live out of a 70-liter backpack now, like full time when I'm
really.
So that's all I have, clothes, possessions wise.
So when you went away, where
in Vietnam.
Vietnam, okay.
Teaching, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and you live out of a backpack.
Yeah, the first time I went there, you kind of just get the idea of how little you actually need to. Just a couple shirts, a couple pairs of pants, and I mean, I fill up my book or my bag mostly with books before I go, because I like having physical books. And then I tear through all those, and now I just read classics on my e-reader when I burn through all the books that I bring with me.
Oh, okay, so you do read a lot.
That's
yeah,
primarily.
Sweet.
You were talking about TV shows. Everyone's like, oh, there's this brand new TV show.
Yeah.
But I'm different. Like, I like the classic books rather than, I don't read a lot of brand new books that have come out. People are always recommending them to me. Like, this is the book I just read. And I'm like, well, when I've finished the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, then I'll start moving on to stuff that's more recent.
Wow. Oh, okay. So what are some of the classics?
like
absolutely not read whatsoever.
Yeah.
The only classic I've read is Lord of the Rings. So what are some of the...
I mean, like, you get all the old ones, like Scott F. Fitzgerald's, like The Great Gatsby, and like those kind of books. And like, I can't remember who said it. Somebody had said, just start reading everything by like one great thinker that you like, and then in their books they start talking about people that they are inspired by, and then you start reading into their stuff. So you end up reading through generations backwards you get into like this Tolstoy's and the Dostoevsky's, like people that have inspired all the writers that have come after them. And you start understanding, like, I don't know, it gives you a different perspective, because once you've read something and then you read what inspired them, it kind of changes the way that you think about it. And that's why you go back and read books again. People can understand why I read books more than once.
Okay. So you're not looking at a book as like one book is completely modular. It's like there's this overview of like this book inspired this book, and like they're sort of connected. Anything
anybody's ever written, to a degree, they connect to each other. Like, nobody goes completely jumping from genre to genre. And if they have, like, I can't imagine that they do it too often, because once you find something you enjoy writing about, you can't really stop yourself from writing about it. And I enjoy reading, and I enjoy other people's writing, because I'm a big fan of writing, and there's no better way to improve the way that you write than reading other great writing.
Yeah, totally. So what are some things that you've read that have changed the way you interact with the world, or changed your life?
Like you were saying, like Living as a Vagabond, like when I read, and it's such a cliched book now, but Jack Kerouac's On the Road. He's like 1950s like beat writer. So they kind of came up right after World War II in like this vacuum of space where America was going very commercial. Everyone was getting, after the war, everyone was getting a fridge and a car and a lawnmower, and like society was becoming so modular. And they kind of lived outside of that. Like, he drove across the country in a car, kind of just sleeping on the sides of roads in railroad cars, and they pick up jobs from here to there. And like, he's driving from New York to San Francisco, down to Texas, back up to New York, down to Mexico. Like, he's all over the States, and he just writes. He has such a surreal way of writing. It's like stream of consciousness. So when he wrote on a typewriter, and because he didn't like stopping and changing the pages, he glued everything one long scroll together, and he wrote nonstop on a scrolled piece of paper.
Oh my goodness!
Kept feeding through the typewriter.
And that's became the book that you read.
Yes. So there's
that's crazy
official edition, because the Beat Generation was so controversial at this time, writing about drugs and stuff like that. Out, because that's when like the morphine and the heroin phases started. In the States too. So he's part of a really controversial group, and the government and publishers, to a degree, didn't want that stuff. Like, there were certain things that couldn't be in his book. So he fought for years to try and get the version of his book he wanted out there. And it wasn't until he was basically, I think he was already dead at this point, that they released the whole unscrolled edition, where it's the full margin to margin. There's no paragraph breaks, no line breaks, no nothing. It's just margin to margin words.
Wow.
And it's dizzying to read it, because you're just like nonstop, and it's so surreal. His descriptions of things, like he could sit in a room and just describe it, and he could just type nonstop, just looking around. So
the margin to margin info is basically like directly from his mind.
It's the closest thing you can get
to like
being inside his head.
Yeah, like his direct consciousness out on paper. Wow. So you read the whole thing?
Yes. Yeah.
And what changed about?
It was just like, I'd always wanted to do something, kind of go abroad, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then I was 2 years into working for this consulting company. Yeah. In downtown, and I read that book over a summer, and I went away to a farm, and I had a ton of time to think of my family farm, and I just kind of decided like enough was enough, and that was kind of what kickstarted the whole process of me moving overseas. Yeah,
because that's exactly what I was going to ask you about. Was you had this job that was stable, and all the classic parts of it, like you had benefits, you had a long-term future, or you're going to know when you're going to retire. Something that a lot of people would want. Yeah. And then you're like, no, I don't want this anymore. And contrary to other people's advice, because I'm sure people told you that, no, you should stick this out. It'll be payoff in the future. And then you didn't. So how did that start? Did you just decide one day that you were going to do it? What did it take? Like you said, it took a while.
It was a build up. Like, it was a while. The first year of working there was like, it was so exciting, just kind of being fresh out of school in an office, feeling like a full-on adult and going about your life that way. And then things just start to wear off. Things that you used to enjoy about it start to become kind of just problems that you can't seem to get over because you're going to the same place doing the same thing every day. So problems seem to go more fester in that environment of that like monotonous day after day to the same place. So I just found myself at a really poor state.
Did you like what you did?
To a degree. I like being challenged. So like for the first learning, I was working in benefits, and so there was so much like legislation and stuff to learn, and I have a certified employee benefits specialist designation that I took over the years that I was there, just because like I really like learning and just keeping my mind active. And it was fun for a while to like throw myself into this whole sector of the world and like figure out how it works. And trust me, there's nothing that changes. Like, people say technology changes fast, but I don't think anything changes as fast as healthcare does.
Really?
So it was a very interesting field to be in, to kind of get to learn about that stuff like immediately on the front lines, especially these days with like prescription drugs and what they're coming out to treat. Yeah. Nothing's changing faster than that, and you have to keep up with it. So it was fun. Like, you can never learn everything you need to know about it, which is good because it keeps you interested in learning. But at the same time, it hits a point where it starts to become cyclical. Year after year, you're doing the same thing with the same clients. And then it's just 3 years in, you start to look at the potential of doing that for 20 more years.
Exactly, yeah.
And you get that, like, I get that just anxiety and like...
that sick feeling.
Yeah,
I've had that, yeah.
There's like it's a quote it's actually from a newer book, but it's like, my bones ache under the weight of all the lives I'm not living. So it's just like...
whoa. My God, that was deep.
It's just you look at what everyone else is doing, like you start to understand that there's different ways to get through life, and that one way that maybe your parents had or your friends are going on maybe not be right for you, and you don't realize it right away. It takes time.
100%.
There's certain events that happen, and you have to be open to realizing it. Some people get miserable and they don't look for the signs that they can change it. They just kind of accept the way that things are.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can become really unhealthy for people. Absolutely.
Wow, big step. I just got to pause. This table is wobbly. We forgot to tell you, since this is very amateur, when you see how the camera's shaking a bit. Yeah. Sorry, we're really... I won't touch the table. Yeah. Sorry, I should have mentioned it before we started. So yeah, it took you a while, and you kind of took a leap of faith. So the day you quit, like, how did you feel? I
felt terrible.
Really? You weren't relieved?
No, it was more of like, what the hell did I just get myself into? Because like,
did you already know, like, you had a plan for what you were gonna? Okay.
When I said I read that book. That was about in July. I went to the farm in August. I came back in September. On the weekends, I started doing my course. So I was 9 hours a day at the hospital, at the U of C campus at the hospital. And
just explain the course quickly. You're learning.
It's just like teaching. So it's a teaching English certification.
Okay.
So,
okay.
You can do it all online, but most of the good programs have an in-class component. So you actually go into a classroom, you learn with other people what works, what doesn't from an experienced instructor, and then you practice teaching your own classes too. So when you're applying for jobs abroad, they can Skype you, but they want to know that the certification that you got is more legit. So that's one of the more legit ones. So.
And you took this after you quit, or was this?
It was during work.
Like, okay.
So I had 60 hours in a classroom over 3 weekends.
Okay.
And I think it was about that. It was 3 weekends of 9 hours, Saturday, Sunday. And then 40 hours of your own time, which was just grammar as well.
Okay.
But that was all online.
So why teaching English?
It was something I had thought about before I even went to start working for the consulting company. When I first left school, I had that huge, like, eyes wide, all these different places you can go and do things that you can do. And then I kind of stumbled into the consulting job. Yeah. And it was like a lot of people, this is really too good of a job to turn down at this point. Like, I just came out of school. The job market was atrocious at the time. Yeah. And I just got lucky enough to get this job. So it was just, I felt kind of this duty to just like try it out, see how it went. Even though I kind of had an idea that this point in my life, the office lifestyle wasn't something that was gonna 100% agree with me. So like, you try and adjust to it, but it just got to the point where it became so obvious that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. So your gut feeling was that you probably won't, you might not like it.
Yeah. So it was just like when I went away, I kind of took time to think, like, where do I want to do? Where are the places I want to go? Like, when I started working for this company, it's a global consulting firm with offices all over the world. So there actually is an office in the city I live in now in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
But I always thought that they'd send me to all these different places. But once you you start working with clients, you get a relationship there. You learn Alberta healthcare regulations. And it's just like moving from province to province starts to become more of an issue because you almost have to start retraining again if I were just to go to BC.
Right.
So I wanted to go. I had spent some time in Vancouver through the company. And I kind of decided, like, I would love to live here. Like, it's a place that I could really see myself living. And they just kind of weren't willing to generally push me in that direction. My value to them was at that office. Yeah, I mean, because I didn't know there was so much involved, but basically you had learned everything in Alberta, and it's
learned
to a degree, yeah,
and or a lot of it, and they don't want to pay you to learn somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm tentative to say that like I learned it all because there's so much to learn, and
I didn't know it was
a very cocky assessment of myself to think that I'd learned.
Oh no, of course,
but I just felt that I'd learned enough to the point where I started to notice the cyclical nature of the work that we were doing. And even though it was spread out over a year, you would think it's not going to the same job every day. Like somebody who works like as a cashier, you're doing the same thing, standing at the same spot. Like it was different clients, different projects, but it was started to become the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
So then you kind of went back to what you were thinking about doing, which was teaching.
Yeah, I looked at going to Vancouver. I looked at maybe if there was other business jobs that I could work in a more informal setting, maybe like at a university or something like that. Because like I said, learning has always been the end goal for me. Like even when I was working for the consulting company, it was always in my mind, go back to school, keep working on your education to the point where I'd be able to start teaching. I always thought I'd enjoy teaching, just not children.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just had to throw that out the window when I realized where I was at. And give it up and see what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So the passion that you've had for a while is teaching.
Yes.
And so
it's just learning in general. I enjoy it, and I think it's getting to the point where people aren't enjoying it as much.
Yeah.
It's tough to get people to pick up a book or something.
Yeah, for sure.
On the TV. So I'd rather be someone who's working towards the other side.
Oh, okay. So you have this teaching kind of passion, and also you love to learn, and you want to share that with other people. Yeah.
Especially
that's
English,
cool,
because I think it's dying.
Really?
Well, reading and literature and that stuff's dying.
Yeah. That's probably true. I don't know if that is, but I believe you.
You think about the great people in history. There's so much there's poets and writers and stuff that are they're glorified in history because of their impact on history. And I'm feeling like it's becoming less and less. People aren't reading older books, so they're not understanding where we came from.
Yeah.
And I think people have this weird locked-in vision that the world's going to be exactly as it is right now when you're 20 or 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
Because I worked in benefits and retirement, and I saw people just thinking that the world was going to be the same in 30 years. And it's going to be so different.
100%.
If you asked your parents at our age what they thought the world was going to be like, half the people would tell you they thought we wouldn't be here. Half would say we'd have flying cars.
100%.
And no one can predict what's going to happen. It's so volatile.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And also, I think right now we're in a point in history, and I don't know almost anything about history, but I'm pretty confident that we're in some of the biggest changes. Like if you go back to the kind of medieval times, things were relatively the same generation to generation, but the last 100 years we've gone through an astronomical amount of change, and it seems to be almost accelerating. Like it's still, things are changing so much.
Yeah, there's just less variables, I think, when you look back in medieval history.
Exactly.
Less things to do each day. You were more focused on living, and now
just surviving.
Now people are kind of almost forget that, and they just go into this drone existence.
Exactly.
Wake up.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. So, as someone who doesn't read a lot, and I dull my brain with television instead, what do you think the value is in reading about all these books from the past and reading about our history? What's the value there, do you think?
For me personally, obviously I love writing, so for me it's...
Oh, so you like to write too? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So for me, that's one of the biggest that I take, biggest things that I take out of it is like other styles of writing. Everyone has their own style, and everyone has something that they wrote about almost better than everyone else did. So you start to look at that person's style of writing, what they wrote about, and it just helps you understand like different cultures as well too. If you read books from, like, obviously finding proper English translations to some books is really difficult, because you find a lot of languages actually don't properly translate to the state that English is in right now.
Yeah, there's some things you can't translate.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. My parents speak German. They're from Austria. Okay. And there's some phrases that you can't translate to English.
Yeah, like living in Vietnam, I've started to learn I don't know. Please don't ask me to speak any, but I don't know.
No, don't worry, I won't.
I know a few words. I know how to get by. Like, I've started to study a little bit more, like how the language works. Like, they were colonized by the French, so they have a little bit of, I think, French influence there in their language. They still use actual alphabet rather than characters like China or Japan or Korea would.
Okay.
So they have like A's and B's and C's. Some of them have accents and whatnot. And
Yeah.
it changes the tone. Like, there's an accent going up, your voice has to go up. Or if the accent's going down, and it's short and long, and it's so complicated to actually learn how to speak. But you notice that it's less expressive. It's so much less expressive. It's just more point A to point B, what you have to say to somebody, say it to somebody.
Okay.
Like, there's no pleases, there's no like niceties, that stuff like that we build into our language.
Oh. So it's like very much goal oriented.
Yeah, like you figure, like, you see how much more expressive English is as a language.
Yeah.
But then English is also terribly frustrating to try and teach because of how much like idioms and phrasal verbs we use in our speech, that like only in our speech and not in our writing too. So like, as a outsider, that's so hard to try and figure out and pick up, because there's a lot of rules for other languages, but English is just a lawless wasteland of like
lawless wasteland
of random phrases that we have just created out of nothing, and we just love them and use them for like 2 years, and then we quit using them, and then someone will use it like 10 years down the road, and everyone will still get it. Yeah. But some person who just learned English 2 years ago will have no idea what anyone's talking about.
Yeah. A couple of my cousins have learned English. They're like from Austria, and they'll like the learning curve, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you can learn the basics quickly, but then after that it's so hard to pick up on these things that we say that don't really make sense. But it's just, that's how we interpret it.
Well, it was really tough. Like I said, I was terrified when I started like to get ready to go there. In September I took the course, and that was like a tough month because it was every single day I was working, then the weekends I was doing my course. So I was kind of happy to be done with that. I started applying for jobs. I picked between Vietnam and Colombia. I had been to Central America, so I figured it'd be closer to Colombia. I'd never been to Asia, so I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going somewhere I've never been.
Balls to the wall.
Got a job, hopped on a flight at the start of the new year. So when I quit my job, it was like 2 weeks to me leaving. And I was terrified. It was almost like my whole life was leading up to getting that job and working the rest of my life at that job, and I was just like, no, I'm done. It was like starting all over again.
For sure. It's scary.
So, but once you get there, you kind of realize how you have to change the way you speak, the way that you communicate, to actually have conversations with people who don't have great English skills or no English skills. And so not only have I learned like theories of education, but it's like theories of communication, like what actually works to communicate with somebody who has no English, to communicate with somebody who has a little bit of English, and then like working their way up the grades or the skill levels. And like you have to change. You can't expect them to like pick up new words overnight and stuff like that. Like, you have to consciously stop using phrases that they won't understand. And it took months to actually get it, but
to learn how to teach.
Learn how to teach, and to learn just how to communicate like to people in a different language. It's a lot of like frantic hand signals.
The body language takes over, right? Exactly. That's pretty cool. I know that I know slightly of that what that experience is like. Just like going back to Europe, and I know a little bit of German, but I don't know enough to have like a conversation. So it's like the frantic hands, like trying to express yourself, and I have like 4 words in my head that I can't get out in the right order because I don't remember. And then you rely on the kind of the body language style communication to get the point across.
And Vietnamese people are very upfront, at least. So they're not gonna, like, as I said, their language very to the point. They're very that way as well. Like, they're just tell me what you need to tell me and leave me alone, or like they're really nice, but it's very straightforward, and they can be to the point of rude, but it's their culture. Like
Yeah.
you're in their culture, so
Yeah.
you can't really expect them to assimilate to being a Canadian where we say sorry every sixth word. Right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So when they're learning English, are they applying that really direct style of communication to English?
So right now, the Vietnamese government put something through that they wanted the country to be bilingual by 2020, which was a complete pipe dream. I think that was 4 years ago.
The whole country to be...
Or like they wanted every school teaching English
by
to
2020.
the generation.
Okay, well,
and
that's
going in the right direction.
ambitious,
definitely.
yeah.
With the government support, it's definitely pushing things along. But there's still so much that has to be done at this point.
Yeah.
The way they're doing it right now is there's still Vietnamese teachers teaching grammar and writing to the students, and I'm primarily focused on listening and speaking.
Oh, okay.
So you teach pronunciation, you teach how things sound,
Mhm.
teach them how, like, you can get them to formulate ideas writing, but you want them to focus on their writing, or you want to focus on their speaking, sorry. You kind of have to leave the rest up to the other teachers because you don't have the time to go through all 4 sections. That's in public schools. If you teach in like the private English centers, you teach the whole. So I've done the one where I've taught just the 2, and I've done where you basically break it down into 4 pillars, like it's speaking, listening, writing, and
The
like
fourth
grammar.
one, which... Sorry?
I forget, like,
That's okay. And the fourth one as well.
Yeah. But yeah, you kind of leave the other 2.
Yeah.
The writing and the grammar. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the time you realize the grammar is, the teachers that are teaching it don't understand it too.
And it kind of spills into the speaking.
So you are really responsible for all of it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But in the public schools, like, you're really given free reign to kind of teach the way I want to teach.
Oh, that's good.
I'm given topics and things that I'm supposed to focus on, but I can be as creative as I want with the way that I decide to communicate that. So it becomes a job where you get what you put into it.
Okay.
Because if you, and I know this from experience too, unfortunately, if you slack off and you don't plan your lessons very well and you think you're just going to make it through the week,
You won't.
they will eat you alive. Like, there's the classes, some of them have 50 kids in them. So,
And they're all staring at you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So what's a typical day like for you? I mean, so when you were here in Calgary working, I mean, it was you probably had a typical 9-to-5 life. Like, I hit the table too. I do it too. I know, but I shouldn't. I have no excuses. But you have the typical 9-to-5 life. Sort of get up, go to work, weekends off, and then you go over to Vietnam to teach English, and it's probably a bit of culture shock. But now that you're kind of, I guess, acclimated. Thank you. Yeah, I have terrible vocabulary, so thank you. What's the day-to-day life for you now?
It changes. Week to week, you usually have about the same schedule. You're only teaching about 25 hours a week-ish in the classroom.
Is that over like 5 days or?
So the Vietnamese school week is 5.5 days. They do expect the kids in high school and junior high school to go to school for a half day on Saturday.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So they really push the kids really hard in that country, like
Really?
really hard. To the point where I don't think it helps their learning for them to be at school that often, that much. But it's just the way that the culture works.
Yeah.
But they start incredibly early, about 7:15, 7:30. I have my first class, and everyone's there before that, so I really 100% don't know what time some of these people are getting to school. But it's well before I'm up, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went from working 9 to 5 where I used to think it was terrible to make it in for 9 o'clock, and it was get up at 6 and 5:30, and that was different for sure. So you go, my first class, if I taught 6 hours in a day, which because there's 25 hours, you don't do too often, but that's a full day.
Okay.
I started about 7:30. You teach 2 90-minute blocks.
Okay.
With 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes in between. And then you hit like 10:45, 11 o'clock, and they take like a 3-hour break for lunch. So because it's so hot, everyone naps. They all take their time eating.
It's like a real siesta?
Yeah. So like in the classrooms, some of the classrooms will have all these wooden boards stacked against the walls. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out, like, what are these wooden boards for? Like, the kids are stumbling over them during class when I asked them to come to the front, and it made no sense. And then one day I was early for class for some reason, to the second half of the day. And all the kids, they put the wooden boards up on top of their desks, and they make this giant flat,
like floor.
elevated floor. And there's a cupboard full of pillows and blankets, and they all just grab their pillows and blankets and sleep on the
Oh my goodness.
on the boards. Yeah.
So
Like
everyone,
grade 6 kids, grade 5 kids.
yeah. So every school has like a siesta / nap time.
It's not even, yeah.
Or,
So every
yeah.
classroom has like a cabinet filled with pillows, and kids bring their own pillows to school all day, and like
Okay.
it's unfortunate because they're sitting at their desks and they're like leaning on their pillows, and they're like, go put it in the cupboard, like, you know, you're not supposed to have it at your
Yeah,
desk. Like,
yeah.
that's, yeah, there's different things you're taking away from kids, and like
Yeah.
in some areas, like some areas they're richer, every kid's got a cell phone, some areas are not. Like
Yeah.
I taught a bit outside the city as well,
Yeah.
so none of the kids would have cell phones.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're taking like goop that they create away from them rather than a cell phone or like a pillow and stuff.
Whatever they want to entertain themselves with.
Yeah.
So are you there? So you're not usually there. You
So I would
through
leave
the
to go
lunch.
home.
You're
Yeah.
okay. So
depending on where I am, like the times I was teaching outside the city, it was unfortunate because I basically just struggled to find an air-conditioned restaurant that had Wi-Fi to kill 2.5, 3 hours. Luckily that was not very often.
Yeah.
And you just basically, you go home at lunch, you see, like I live with other teachers because the company put us up in a house.
Oh,
so,
okay,
like, you'd see
okay.
other teachers at lunch, you kind of just talk about your mornings,
Yeah.
eat, and then you'd go to your designated napping areas as well. And
Really?
Yeah, like you get into the habit, like if you
Oh
take
my
a 20-minute
goodness.
nap every day, it becomes something that like you don't realize how much you need until it's gone, and then you stop napping and it feels so weird. Because before I never napped in my life before. I couldn't figure out why people would waste time on napping, and now I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. Couldn't do a day without it.
That's hilarious. So then, what time do you get home by?
So yeah, you do the 3 hours, you go back at like 1:30, and you do 2 more 90-minute blocks, and then you go home like 4:45, 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So you do like 7 to 5.
Yeah. So it's a full day
Yeah,
for sure.
So you get the 3 hours off in the middle.
Yeah.
And yeah. It depends on how you use your time, really. Like.
Yeah.
As I said, it's 25 teaching hours. If there's not a lot of travel, like I'm spending 30 hours a week, which is much less than I used to spend. So I get that extra time.
Yeah.
And if I'm smart with it, some of it's at lunch, but if I'm smart with it, I can use it for something else.
Yeah. And then,
Sorry.
no, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So like, for me, when I get home, I'm usually either cooking or, like I said, plopping myself in front of the TV. Are you just going home and usually reading, or what are you doing in the?
Yeah, there's not. So I don't do a lot of cooking there.
Yeah.
Their food's really cheap. It's so inexpensive to eat. If I eat, like, so they have street food, which is like Vietnamese street food.
Yeah.
So
It sounds delicious. I don't even know what it is.
it's all these different like noodles and soups.
Oh
and
man, the best.
Trust me, there's
I
stuff
love
you
Asian food.
You would not want to not want to eat from looking at it.
Oh.
But for the most part, I liked Vietnamese food before I left. Like people don't seem to realize. Everyone asks me, they're like, "Oh, have you ever tried Vietnamese food before?" I'm like, "I live in Canada. Like we have a lot of Vietnamese immigrants here. Like
Totally.
yeah, and they all have. There's plenty of restaurants and people to talk to. And
Yeah,
things to
yeah,
try.
yeah.
So I liked the food before I left, so it was easy to kind of adjust. Like your stomach takes a while to adjust to every time I go back and forth.
Oh
But,
yeah. Okay.
if you eat street food, you can live off about just food wise like $5 ish a day.
Oh, okay.
Like
wow.
If you're
So
having,
no-
if you have like a coffee and a few meals, like yeah.
So yeah, no need to cook.
No. And like it almost gets to the point like the things I want to cook are things I miss from home, like mac and cheese and those kind of things.
Oh,
like
okay.
simple things you'd never think you'd miss.
Oh, okay.
And you can go get that. Like there's plenty of supermarkets, and like my mother's always shocked. She's like, "Where do you buy like your toothpaste and stuff?" I was like, "I buy Colgate from the supermarket, just like everybody else does."
Like this country's still on
Yeah,
planet Earth.
like
it's not
it
like
operates like there's fluorescent lights in the supermarket too. Like it looks exactly like the one that you go to. Looks like.
I don't go to Mars when I
Yeah.
go teach. Yeah, yeah.
And they've got a huge influx of like convenience store culture
Yeah.
now. So it's like all these convenience stores are popping up. Like I think you guys have the new Circle K here.
Yeah,
Circle K's are all over.
The Max over there just
Yeah.
switched to Circle K. The crack Max.
That one needed a rebranding. Yeah.
100%.
But
Yeah.
the convenience store culture. So it's huge for kids now. Like they go in with and buy like something little, and there's all these seats, and they just hang out for hours.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's like where the younger crowd hangs out.
Oh, that's the cool place to be.
Yeah.
So you grab some food and
Like I usually grab some food, maybe go to the gym if it's that kind of day. Like
Yeah.
I play on a softball team on the weekends.
okay.
I play on an Irish football team as well, but it's like you only travel for tournaments and you just practice twice a week.
Okay.
And you can go, like you don't have to show up. They're not gonna
Yeah.
take you off the team, but like it's like a training. Just the way, it's really hard to get outside and get active there.
Yeah.
And it's a big issue. They actually have like the least, I think, obese culture in the world.
Oh, really?
Or like, country in the world. But at the same time, it's deteriorating very quickly. They have these like milk teas, which are awful for you, and every single kid loves them.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's heading in the wrong direction, because like their physical activity times maybe an hour to 90 minutes a week at school, but they don't have like fields to play in. It's like a little stone courtyard in the middle of the school. So they practice marching, in formation and stuff like that. That's like part of their exercise time. So it is a problem for kids. But for me, like, I need to be outside. Like, I lived in Calgary. I used to bike to work downtown.
Yeah. Okay.
So I really miss being outside and doing that kind of stuff.
You like being active.
Yeah. So just getting outside and like running around, even if it's like playing a game I never played before.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable enough just to run around. Other than that, it's like a treadmill every day.
Yeah.
And that gets to be
monotonous. Yeah.
Exactly.
I run most days at work on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And I'm just staring at a window and into nothingness.
Well, these ones actually are funny because they're in front of a window as well, but it looks straight out into the street. So there's lots of people going by on their motorbikes. And then I don't live in a very posh area of the city I lived in. So there wasn't a lot of people that look like me around. So if they saw me on the treadmill, they'd be like driving by on their bikes, and they'd just... I swear I was waiting for an accident, just because it was all the time, every day. And like even the people like in the gym would just be like staring at you, and they just can't stop. They can't help themselves. They're like, what is this person doing at my gym? Like,
are you that much of a minority?
Yeah, in that area.
Oh, okay.
And to be quite across the country, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
It's a very very densely populated area of just one type of people for the most part. Yeah.
It sounds kind of like Japan.
Yeah. It's a lot of Asian places. Like a lot of the places that I've went have all been really similar. The only place that I went that was kind of a little bit different was Singapore, because it's kind of like all the richer factions of each part come together. So that was an interesting place to see, because you actually see like an Indian man and like a Chinese woman in a relationship, which you wouldn't see like anywhere else in Asia.
Yeah,
so,
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool place to be. But other than that, I am a big minority in especially in the part of the city that I used to live in.
Sweet. So it sounds like you keep yourself pretty busy. Like one thing I would go ahead.
No, and I was just saying, and like after the gym, it depends on the day. Obviously, like there's so many different, like there's 10 million people. There's so many different restaurants, and like there is a big expat community that's coming up there.
Okay.
So there's lots of like foreign Mexican restaurants and Thai restaurants and barbecue places and burger joints, like. And the expats they keep a good kind of foodie relationship. Like everyone loves to go try the new restaurants that open up.
Oh, okay.
So you live with like 4 or 5 people, and the school that I work at is like 120 teachers. So you basically just throw a message out, who wants to go grab dinner, and like different groupings, so people will show up for dinner. So you do that some nights, you can just shut yourself away. Like it becomes a lot living in a city that's that busy, that loud, and some days you just need to kind of shut yourself away and like you said, read a book, or just like
So you think you have a pretty good balance between your own time and what everything else you want to do?
For me, I feel like it's up to me. Like I can take all the extra time that I get and I could sleep with it, or I can take all the extra time I get and I could do one thing, or so many different things. But like it's up to you whether you want to use your time. I think that goes for anybody, not just me.
Totally. Time management's like something you learn a lot in life as you get older. One thing I was like, if I was picturing myself to do that, I would think I'd get kind of lonely. Do you ever feel that way, or is it...
some like it's different degrees. And I think it's just different days. Like some days you just have bad days at school, and you just like it feels terrible, but at the same time you go home, there's people that were out teaching all day too, and you can just like sometimes you just need to vent. Just get it out, and like you feel so much better. Because you don't want to be mad at these little kids. Like there's nothing that they're doing intentionally, or that like, maliciously.
Just teaching can be tough.
Just have bad days. As a teacher, you have bad days. And I think again that's any job, but it can be over there, like you said, it can be a little bit more amplified when you have a bad day, because you're like riding home on your own in this crazy city, and you're like sometimes things just build and build and build. But that's one of the things you learn from being there, is like if you were going to get angry every time somebody cut you off on a motorbike, you would spend your whole day angry every single day you were there. And you kind of just learn to let little things go. And kind of like, so that's been something I've had to teach myself, because here I definitely let little things bother me all the time. I used to have the worst road rage, and you just kind of let those things kind of melt away now, and kind of just focus you on what's a little bit more important. And I find that I never really have a lack of people that I can hang out with and spend time
perfect
with to do that. And because you're meeting so many different people, you get different relationships with people where you can do different things.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more diverse of a group. Like, you have your old friends who you love, and but you start to like, there starts to be less and less in common with them versus the people that you meet that you've just met because you're the most current version of yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Totally.
So the things that you bond over now are kind of more in line with who you are at this moment.
Totally.
So it's not like you're going to abandon your old friends. Like, you've still got those old relationships, pillars.
But those started when maybe you were a bit different.
Yeah,
you're different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've changed so much. I still find I'm changing so much from year to year. And I mean, especially the last 2 years being away, I felt like I've changed a lot. So I still come back. I still have lots of great friends.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Being away, like, it's different. It's hard to explain how to.
Yeah, totally.
That's the closest thing I can get to it. It's just like, you're different.
You're different. Yeah. So when you, going back, was there anything you would change? Like, are you so happy you made this big transition, or?
Yeah. I'm not going to second guess myself on it at all. Like, I needed a change at that point in my life, and it really, I don't think it mattered 100% what it was going to be.
Okay.
But after the people I've met, the experiences I've had now, like, I wouldn't trade it at all.
For sure.
I couldn't say that I'd give that up.
Yeah.
And even, like, you find out little things change the way, like, you perceive everything. Like, when I went back, I was going to go live in the same house I lived in before, and I was going to live with 2 people that I knew, and I was going to work at the school I worked at the year before. Well, I went back. The 2 people that I knew said they were leaving in 2 weeks to move to a different city. There was full-time teachers at the school that I was at, so I had to go to brand new schools. So it was like, almost like, why did I do this? Like, nothing actually worked out the way I thought it was going to.
Mm-hmm.
But then I ended up meeting the new people that I was living with, and the new teachers, and, like, the relationships that I built at the new schools that I was at. And you just start to think, like, that little thing happened. And changed all this other stuff.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I wouldn't change it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because you've had such an interesting journey with that. How could you ever give that up? You know, like, going over there, teaching, meeting all those people. Like, you can't sit here and say, like, I don't want to have had all that happen, because it's probably been awesome. So looking in the future, and you've obviously said you're always changing, and you're learning a lot. What is it that you want for yourself for the future to be happy, to be content with life? What do you think is really important?
I think,
because it's a tough question. I don't think a lot of people actually know.
Yeah, I mean,
and
like,
I always have theories.
There's always that thing, like the shooting star shooting across the sky, and you think, what's the one thing you'd wish for? And it's really hard to come up with, like, an actual answer to that question.
I think a lot of people would say they want to be content.
Yeah.
But that's not easy. That's like a huge umbrella. And
it almost feels like it's just like, it's this far off goal that you never really know if you're going to obtain.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you could get there and be like, well, being content's all right.
Yeah. Here I am. I'm content.
Exactly. I'm here.
And then
I made it.
Yeah, totally.
So, and, like, you could say, oh, I want to be happy, but I think that's also, like, I don't think there's a perpetual state of happiness. I don't think that actually exists.
Oh,
I think from moment to moment, you can be happy one moment and something could happen that's out of your control, like chaos.
Totally.
And it could cause you to be unhappy, and it's not your fault. It's not something you've done, and it's not something you can change.
Yeah.
But you were at a state of being happy, and now you're at a state of not being happy. You can't carry that happiness through the rest of your life, unless you're ignoring life.
Well, could you say that the way to be happy is to control how you react to things? Because if something terrible happens, maybe you're in control of how you react.
Yeah, like the whole positive, think positive, and positive things will happen. It's
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm buying that yet.
No, not really.
Trish is a big believer in that, but I'm not there yet.
I just think to a degree, you can control what you can control, and I think you just have to kind of open yourself up to the fact that so many things happen in life that you can't control. And yeah, you're right. Like, just take the few good things. Like, my whole thing that I want to just push forward is to be a better version of myself every single day.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, if you have a bad day, how can you be better the next day? And
that's a good way of thinking.
I think it was Anne Frank wrote that, like, imagine the world we'd live in if everybody spent 10 minutes before they went to bed thinking of all the good things that happened that day and all the bad things that happened that day, and focusing on the bad things and trying to make them better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And just, like, I think for me, I want to have a firm belief in something. Like, one of the big things that I've noticed going away is I'm at that transitional state of my life where I am trying to figure out what it is I want, like
Totally.
to answer to the question that you just asked. And I find I'm in the presence of more like-minded individuals that are away, that we're just trying to figure it out. Like a lot of people are running from certain different things and they're just trying to figure themselves out, and like we do it at different parts of our lives, right?
Yeah.
So I'm working on that. Like I'm trying to get an answer to that question. Like I want to have a purpose that I'm extremely passionate about.
Yeah.
And right now, like I write and I have a lot of creative endeavors. Like I'm got my hands in different pots, too many probably.
Yeah, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's something I like. I like creating things. I like doing stuff like that. But it's how can I use that to actually do something that, because right now, like my writing's for me. I do it for myself. I sometimes write for other people and I share that with that person.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's for me. So how do I use that to actually help somebody else is what I'm trying to work on.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things that, if I'm understanding you correctly, that you said makes you happy is being able to be creative.
Yeah.
And one thing you'd like to do is take your creativeness and the content you build and help someone or share it with someone, or I don't know, have that be part of your future, right?
Yeah, like I mean right now just things I'm doing is like being back home, I'm pushing some of my friends just to try and push them into something that they've never done before. So like somebody who just like who does have the go to work, come home, go to bed, wake up, do it all over again. Like what I have a lot of people in my family. sorry. No offense on that one, but
that's like, okay.
Yeah, I trust me. I am of the firm belief that like just leave everyone to do what they want to do, as long as they're not hurting anybody.
Yeah,
like let them believe what they want, let them do what they want, as long as they're not being harmful to anybody else. I don't care. Like you can believe the Earth is flat. I won't. Like,
as long as they don't tell you that, try to convince you.
Like I won't suggest NASA hire you for like some kind of mission or anything. But like, just believe what you want and don't try and change what other people believe. Like let them figure that out themselves.
Yeah, but you know what comes out of being uncomfortable and trying something new, and you want other people to experience that too.
Yeah. So like I did have a friend who was just like he doesn't know, like he has a job that he loves and that he does, but he doesn't have a lot outside of that. And I'll have a lot of family out on the East Coast where people are working until like 70 and 75 for lack of something better to do. And my mom's at the point where she's probably going to retire, but why would she retire? Like it's going to leave her day empty. And so I've been trying to push her to be like, you need a hobby, you need something to do with your time that's like productive still. Like just because you're retired doesn't mean your life is over. Like you didn't work your whole life just for your life to end at retirement, right?
100%.
So like I bought her a book on like how to bring out your creativity, and I'm trying to push her. So I'm like trying to push my friends like that now too, just because I just encourage people to just start. Like writing is a very simple way to start. You don't realize how much you think and how many opinions you have and things that you can piece together until you just put a piece of paper in front of yourself and you write.
Interesting.
And I've had some pretty positive feedback actually from a couple of people who've tried it out. Yeah.
What do you recommend, if anything, for people to write? Like diary entries or just... I
don't care.
Just write?
Just write.
Really?
Just see what comes
And people just write stuff?
Yeah, trust me, and it's terrifying when you first start. Because you open it up and you're like it's almost like all the negative thoughts and all that like anxiety and like the latent mental illnesses like come to the forefront, and you're like just shaking.
Yeah.
But you've no idea what you're capable of and what your mind actually is capable of piecing together until you actually just start writing, because thoughts come and they go and they get lost so quickly.
Yeah.
Like you always have those things that you think, oh, I'm going to remember that for later.
It's
an hour later and you can't for the life of you figure out what you were even thinking about in the first place. So just like see what comes out, because you'd be amazed. I think every single person would be amazed what would come out if they just wrote. They sat for an hour and just focused on writing, turn off everything else, and just
So one thing you think is really important is just being creative, letting your creative,
because it'll tell you what you want to do.
Right. Okay.
Like you said, that's the whole coin flip thing. Like when you flip a coin, when the coin's in the air, you already know what you want to do.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So if you start writing, it's going to come out because it's already in there. It's just kind of waiting for you to kind of piece it all together. You might need to write about days worth of crap to get to like one line.
Right.
That, like really sums up what you're thinking at that moment or how you're feeling about something.
That's super interesting. I never thought that anyone could do that, because I'm like terrible at English and like
it doesn't matter.
But it's interesting. So basically you're saying that getting deep to where things are stored, and then when you start writing, you can kind of pull that out and you make it into something, and that's going to expose parts of you.
Yeah, like there's the conscious and subconscious. So the conscious is everything you're thinking of right now, and the subconscious is everything you've thought about and everything that's kind of is percolating ideas. And then when you get everything that's in your conscious out of the way, like the appointments and the stupid meetings and all that stuff, you start to get to things that you're like Go ahead. You start to get to things that you're actually like really passionate about and you didn't realize, and like and yeah, I could recommend that anybody would do that, because I don't care what you're dealing with in life too. If you write about something, like, you're gonna help yourself, because once it's out of your head and it's on the page, you can look at it rationally, logically. Yeah. And it's not like that kind of like that violent emotion that can sometimes like taint everything you're seeing. Yeah. Once you get it out, you're like, oh my, I've been overthinking this for sure. Like, this isn't a big deal. You just can crumple up that piece of paper and you throw it away. Yeah. So
you can actually sort of analyze yourself.
It's like your own version of therapy. It's like self-therapy.
That's crazy. I never thought about that. That's really cool. So you're kind of peeling back the layers, if I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, because people get stuck into their roles in society, and they don't kind of think that like their life is your life's not over at like 35.
Yeah. And maybe you do this, sorry to cut you off, maybe you do this when you're younger, so that you don't have to go through this when you're, let's say, 50 or 60, and you're talking about people that retire, and the first day they retire, they sit down and they start peeling back the layers, and they realize, wow, I wish I did this, or this is something about me that I didn't know, I wish I had known 30 years ago. Yeah. So that self-discovery doesn't happen until, as one example, during retirement, because they've been just constantly stacking the front of their brain with like what's in front of them and not getting back to that's cool, because I've talked to people that I've worked with that are older, and I just get this sense like they have regrets, or they have wishes that they never acted on, and they fill the front of their mind with appointments and meetings, like, oh, I'm always busy, or whatever they're saying that isn't letting them get back to where the things they really want. And then they're 50, 60 years old, and at that point, living with that kind of regret would probably be really painful. But this exercise,
it allows you
brings that out right away.
It does. And I think the way our society is moving, it might not be great for the more traditional families, that people are waiting longer to get married and starting their lives. But I mean, this was always coming for me. I was always going to leave. It was just a matter of when.
You knew it was going to happen.
It was always that part of me that was like, I need to live somewhere else to validate that Calgary's a great city, but I needed to be somewhere else to validate that opinion, right? Like, totally, yeah. There's a difference between knowing and believing, and that's like a Buddhist principle. Like, all the things we learned in school, we learned them through word of mouth. Like, we didn't witness that. So how do we know that actually happened? So if somebody tells you something, you don't know that until you do it for yourself. So for me,
100%.
People could tell me Vietnam's a dangerous place. Why would you want to go there? Like, they know all these things that they've learned about it.
They know.
They've never been there. So it wasn't until I went there and I learned them for myself. Yeah, there's some negative parts of living there. There's some great parts of living there. And you just kind of have to learn things for yourself. And I think, like I said, like, the longer that this goes, like, people moving back to get married, I didn't have any really responsibilities tying me down. I could pick up my life and leave. But when people were getting married at 22, 23, they're still growing up. And then you hit 29. And you've got a kid and a house and a job, and you're like, that's it.
And you didn't dig down to the parts, figure out what you really want.
And it's not like it's that person's fault. And it's not like it's their fault that they can't change it now. Like, they could change minor ways, but I mean, at that point in your life, you can't pick it up and just
you don't have the flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
and then you could be stuck.
It's better that people are waiting longer for these things, because you're allowing yourself more time to figure yourself out.
Yeah, you're going to invest in yourself long term, which is better long term. But like you said, maybe in the beginning it looks less productive. I like what you said before, and that's something I really strongly believe in, which is basically questioning things. Like, there's so many things that my parents told me and taught me, like, through none of their own fault, like through word of mouth, that they were taught, that when I spent time questioning it, I realized, like, this is wrong, or like there's other ways of doing this. So that is really, this is awesome you mentioned that, because that really rings true to me. Like, I spend a lot of time questioning things because I don't think we can really know much for certain. And when we were talking earlier about how much the world changes, like, you really need to spend time, I think, thinking about what is it I want, what is it that I think I know, and questioning that stuff, because I'd say a lot of times we're probably wrong as we're getting older.
We just think we believe things. And if you don't take time, like I said, to figure out what you believe and what you want to do, you're just going to think you want that. Like when I was growing up, I thought, okay, finish university, get a job just like my family did. And like, but I'd be ready by this certain point. And then it hits the point you're not ready. And you're like, you think something's wrong with you.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not. It's just the world has changed so much. Traditions and manners and that stuff, like it's valuable. It adds value to society to have traditions, to have that kind of stuff. Yeah. But they have to change because the traditions, like my mom grew up on a farm in Nova Scotia with 6 brothers. Like her life compared to my life that I'm living now is so vastly different that like, yes, you can take like the respect and that kind of stuff from growing up on a farm, the hard work, but you've got to change it into something that's more relatable. Like if people can't contextualize the things that you're telling them, it's useless information.
Exactly.
So it gets into their head and it can chew up their minds, like because you can't interpret it correctly. Yeah. So you start believing these things are wrong, and all it is like you're just a little bit different. Like you just think a little bit different than your parents. Like it doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah, totally. And when you have that moment where you're like, oh my God, I think differently, you kind of feel like alienated, or you, like you said, you might have this feeling where you feel like you're wrong, but you're just outside of the lanes. Yeah. But there's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with that. But your first reaction is, I'm different. I want to do something different, and this isn't what I should be doing, because you've been told, or the examples before you showed one path. Yeah. And you feel, I think you have that gut feeling you want to take a different path. But the first time you feel that, at least for me, you're uncomfortable.
It is. It's not a great feeling to know that like everyone else is doing one thing, you're doing another thing, because you have to figure out why you're doing that. Yeah. And I mean, it's a fault on the other side is people don't figure out why they're doing some things. They just, I need to do this, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and I think then what's worse than that is waking up at 50 or 60 and realizing, shit, maybe I should have thought about my life a little bit, because I mean, we have a finite time on this earth, and I'm sure they accomplished the things that they set out to do, but were they the things they actually wanted? Yeah.
And you don't know. You just won't know. And you could still like, that's why I've always just like, you try and keep things short term, because like you said, you could end up at the end of an 8-year degree and realize you don't want to do what you initially wanted to do 8 years ago. Yeah. That's a long time. Yeah. So, I mean, you've got to listen to yourself. You've got to be willing to just understand when things aren't going the way that internally feels right for you. And it's like you said, it's not a great realization, but like for me, I take comfort in the fact it's my belief. I don't know this either, but I believe that anything that you're going through in life, someone else has gone through at some point. So we're all different people. We're different, unique people, because we go through these different phases and things that happen to us at different times in life. So it keeps us completely unique. But what you're going through is something that someone else has gone through. So people have made it through what you're dealing with. And you need to find the right people to talk to about those things. Or you need to just kind of put yourself in the right mindset, because you can get through anything if you're strong. Like if you're internally strong enough and you have a good enough support system around you, you can get through anything. But you have to not bury yourself immediately and think that first realization, like, this is wrong. I need to force myself to go the other way, or like find a way to go the other way. Yeah. Rather than just listening to yourself and going the way that feels right.
Kind of, instead of listening to the front part of your brain, go deeper. And and like, I think what one thing I can add to that is that, do you have the courage to do it? Because like you said, there's no way you regret doing a complete 180 on your career, or whatever word you want to use to encapsulate what you're doing. But you have absolutely no regrets. And I don't think anyone would regret going after what they figured out they want, even if it was 10 years into the first thing they thought about doing. Yeah. They're never going to regret it. So I think the big tough part there is to have the courage to take that step, because the easy route is to just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. There's a quote from a movie I thought of, Beautiful Scent of a Woman, with Al Pacino, and he's like, I always knew what the right path was, but I never took it because it was too hard. Yeah. So those are tough choices: the right path, the hard path, and the easy path. Yeah. That balance is very difficult. But I think if you look at lots of people who are happy and successful, they had that courage to go the hard, difficult, but the right path.
Yeah, you just have to you have to be aware of the fluidity of life, things changing. Things don't look like they're changing when you live in the same apartment and you go to the same place every day to your work, right? And you're just transporting between those two places. You might see, a new Subway has opened up on your way, but things are changing.
There's a sale at Safeway.
Yeah, things are changing at such high levels, right? The way people believe, or the way people believe. Traditional, it was churches and mosques and temples and going there, but I think it's changed a lot into more of a personal thing now, and giving, like I said, let people believe whatever they want to believe as long as they're not hurting people. So I 100%. Do have a little bit of a problem with religion in that respect.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go there, but it's just,
I think I know what you're saying, and I completely agree. Religion that hurts people, not cool.
Yeah, there's religious wars still being fought right now. It's never ending, and it's not helping anyone.
Yeah.
But I do believe that I do feel very strongly that you have to believe in something. You can't just think this is a complete, it's a lawless world.
That's how I think.
It's fair.
Random chaos, nothing else.
But you believe in that too.
Huh.
Do you believe? You believe in complete random chaos?
That's the leading theory. I'm not really set on anything.
See, yeah, I believe more that things happen out of your control. So many things do, and there is.
Isn't that random chaos?
Basically, but I also think that there's so many weird circumstances that they're just too perfect for me to 100% count it out. That there isn't something. Trust me, I'm not thinking deities and multiple gods and those kind of things. I just think that, and it's as simple as thinking or believing, if you do the right thing, right things will happen to you, or positive things will happen to you, right? That's a simple belief in life.
For sure, yeah.
Or if you treat people a certain way, like you would hope to be treated.
So you think there's a bit of karma there? You think?
Yeah, I just think that you need to be. It gives you a license to be lawless when you believe in complete lawlessness. Because you're just well, what I do doesn't 100% matter. It's going to happen, or things are going to happen. There's a difference between believing in fate, where everything's predestined.
For sure, yeah.
And destiny and all those great words that everyone loves to use.
Yeah, great words that make them feel good.
Yeah, and then there's the whole chaos thing, where if you believe in random chaos, you still have to believe that to a degree your actions don't matter. Because,
well, of course, yeah,
it's all random.
Exactly.
So it's almost like they're intertwined ideas when you break them down, right? Things are going to happen. Things are going to happen outside of your control. Things are going to happen whether you do something or you don't do something. And some people choose to believe that that's fate.
Yeah.
You were going to make that decision to make it to that point at the end.
And
some people believe it's random chaos. I was going to make that decision because I was going to make that decision. It doesn't mean anything.
So they both fit. Whether that's a good point.
It's just what you choose to believe.
You could say it was fate that happened, or it was random chaos that got you there. But either way, you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever gets you through the day. I honestly don't care. If you think that there's somebody up there watching out for you, that's helping you get through something or through another day, then by all means, that doesn't hurt me at all.
Yeah, you're not judging what other people believe.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm still trying to figure out, there's certain principles from certain religions that I resonate within me. Like the Buddhist, knowing and believing. I believe in that. I believe that you have to find things out for yourself in this world, because you can't. It's just becoming more and more apparent that you can't trust people, and you can't trust what you read
100%.
See, especially when it comes to the internet. So you have to, like you said, question things.
Yeah.
So
especially when those things pertain to what you're going to do for your life, right?
Yeah. It informs all your actions.
Yeah.
The way you are and what you believe in. Yeah.
Yeah. And when those things influence your day-to-day life and what you believe in and who you are, I think you should spend time thinking about it or questioning it. And I think that's awesome that you're I'm still figuring it out. I think that scares people. If they didn't have a really rigid set of beliefs that they swear for sure is true, if they had to be in a situation like you where you're I'm not totally sure, I'm figuring out, I think they'd be uncomfortable. But you're taking that step to think, okay, I'm not 100% certain, but I'm going to try and figure it out.
Yeah. I've still seen so little of the world.
Yeah.
And I've still experienced so little of what there is in the world to experience. And there's things you don't want to experience and things you do. And things happen the way they happen, and you're going to experience things you don't enjoy and things you do. But it's the way you're dealing with them on a day-to-day basis, and how you're pushing yourself into different situations. I hold these almost two completely contradictory personas. in my head is like this completely unwavering logic and practicality, and then like this violent, irrational, emotional person that just and it's a war. It's a constant war.
Damn, that's how I feel.
Like, that's why I use the writing, is like that violent, irrational person just scribbles all night long, and then I go back and read it as the practical, logical person that I am, and I'm like, well, no, you're being stupid there. You're being stupid there.
Really?
You're overreacting there. So like, yeah, it's like the George Orwell doublethink, like holding two completely contradictory ideas and believing that they're the same thing, or believing that they're both true. Sorry. Okay. So that's like, it's a dystopian novel about how like the government takes control and starts like influencing life, and they kind of basically take complete control over life, and they start changing history, and then every time something happens they'll change history again. So he works in an office where he changes old newspapers, the articles, to make the leader, whatever he said, correct.
Okay.
And then they burn all the old stuff and they re-release the newspapers.
Okay.
So you're basically you're changing it, but you also have to believe it's true, because if the government finds out you don't think it's true, you're gone.
Oh, okay.
So you have to hold those two ideas in perfect harmony, or you're a goner.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense.
No,
but yeah. And so that's how you think about things in life. Like,
well, that's just how I think about those two personas. They're there. They're both real, and I can't say that I'm not an emotional person. I can't say that I'm not a logical person. Like, I'm both.
Yeah.
And they don't really feed too well together, but yeah.
Yeah,
they keep each other in check to a degree.
Yeah, you're really on. Speaking to exactly how I feel sometimes. Sorry, I can't get the words. For having a podcast, I'm not very good at English, so you have to bear with me. But that's exactly how I feel a lot of times. Like, live my life very logically.
Yeah.
But I think a big part of that is because it's to help control what I'm feeling, or not control, but keep my feelings in between certain boundaries.
You want to acknowledge them, take what you can from them, but not let them control you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to shut it away, like, or else it'll just fester. You want to embrace the parts of you that you feel, and but yeah, like, a lot of my life is very calculated, just so that I think have the capacity or the control over, or some control over, the feelings part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. So you have to, you just let them both ride. One of them is what you deal with creatively, and then the other part sort of helps analyze.
Yeah, like I view my life from a very logical, like, viewpoint, but at the same time, a lot of the things I've done aren't practical and logical in a long-term sense. So I kind of just have to go with that emotional person, just be like, the world's changing, you're going to change again, screw it, go for it.
Yeah.
Because the logical person the whole time is just like, no, you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
Because you're trading stability for something different, something that's intangible, that you don't know.
Yeah.
So you're trading something you don't know for something or something you do know for something you don't.
Yeah.
And that's like so illogical to do, because once you've learned something, like, you lock that in.
Yeah.
That's your niche, and you just start going with it.
Yeah. Maybe you have the best of both worlds, though, because you know what you should do, and you get that from your emotional side, so you can make those big jumps, and you have the courage to go after things that are different and challenge yourself. But then when you get there, you have the logic to get through it. So it sounds like you're able to balance it really well.
It was, but yeah, I learned that's from lots of time learning too. And like, when I first left, like, that was I wasn't at that part of my life when I first left. Like, I was such a different part of my life where things just weighed on me too much, and that logical person just viewed everything I did as like a complete mistake.
Yeah.
So it's training yourself to kind of work with both sides of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably not the only one who's got this. Like you said, you're dealing with the same thing. Like,
it feels that way.
I feel like a lot of people could easily relate to that, and just in different ways. But yeah, it's how do you keep both of them in check?
Yeah.
And when you leave, like, you learn to do that. I learned through writing. I learned through experience and like pushing myself. Because before I left, I would have never told you I had the courage to go and do it. I was always that person who said I was going to do something and never did it.
Right.
And then it wasn't until that very first time that I did it, I was like, okay, things can be different.
Yeah.
And then you start pushing that.
It's I don't want to insult that experience with this comparison, but it's like how I felt when I started running. Like, I always used to start running and then give up, and then it's like I started to run consistently, and it was like once you do it, you have momentum. So now the comparison I'm trying to draw is now you have more motivation to go do something else that's uncomfortable, or go and take another leap of faith, because you always said you were going to do it, didn't work out, and then the one time you did go for it, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So now you're like, I'm going to do anything and
gotta,
everything.
Yeah, and then once you start doing that, you got to accept the inevitable pitfalls that are going to happen. Like, you're going to run yourself into some pretty ridiculous situations, but
you're better for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn. You just have to learn from those bad experiences.
It sounds like you've got an awesome life.
Working on it.
But I think that's one of the biggest parts, is just to admit to yourself that you're a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think you could ask that, or talk to someone who's been on this world 80 years. They would probably would say it's a work in progress.
Like, you can't talk to one person and figure everything out.
No.
You have to talk to so many different people of different ages and different races and ethnicities and everything. Like, because you see your version of the world.
100%.
And I'm still trying to figure out whether we fundamentally see different things. Like, when you and I both look at something, do we see the exact same thing?
This is real talk. I've thought about this before.
Because, like,
we
can't know for sure, though. You can't see what I'm seeing. Like, you can't, like, you're
speaking my language.
Yeah. So do we fundamentally see different things? Do I see the world in like, when I look around a room, I'm trying to think of ways to describe what I see. So I'm thinking of words and descriptive words, and like trying to figure out everything I'm seeing and trying to catalog it. But other people might see one thing and they're staring at a flower the whole time.
100%.
And they're just looking at it, and like they miss everything that's around the flower, but they've memorized every detail of that flower. And there's no right way or wrong way to do it. It's just, do we fundamentally see different things?
Then if you ask, can you describe the room, two completely different descriptions because of what you saw and the other person saw. That's how I feel about, like, because I'm always questioning things and what's true and not true. What we think is true is there's almost like enough people agree, or enough people look at it the same way that we think it's true. Like, I always use the speed of light as an example. Like, enough people in this world agreed what the speed of light is, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
But if someone looks at it differently, they might not agree. But we have enough agreement that we think that's one of the laws of physics. But from the speed of light, which is, I think, is one of the most concrete things you can use, it gets so gray after that. Talking about any topic or any sort of decision-making process, it just comes down to how you look at it.
Yeah.
Right? And you can't, and I agree with you. I don't think any two people look at something exactly the same way.
Then you have to think about, like, how is that information being presented to you as well?
Yeah.
Like, is it coming from a company who's trying to sell you something? Because that's going to change, like, how much you can accept of the information, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of it just boils down, like, I think that's a writing thing, like me looking around the room. Like, that's something that Hemingway had said. Like, when you go into a room, you should be able to describe when you leave the room, you should be able to describe everything you saw, everything that you learned, and what you felt and why you felt that way. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's like, when you leave and you're in a bad mood, how can you quickly identify what was it that put you in that mood? Because you can just let that fester for days, and you don't even know what you're pissed off about at the end of the 2 days.
Yeah, that's interesting.
If you don't, like, acknowledge something and just move on from it.
Yeah.
Your mind can be a dangerous place.
Very dangerous.
So I think
that's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mental health is, like, it's so important. It's something you have to always be conscious of and thinking about.
Well, yeah, your world comes through your head.
Yeah. For me, like, I'm terrified for later in life, because for me, my brain is everything. Like, I could lose, I don't want to put a jinx on myself, but I could lose a limb and be all right as long as I could still think and be that person that I am. What I am is my mind. So,
yeah, I've said that to Trish before. Like, I don't know if I could handle not having my mental capacity.
Full faculties.
I would
at any point.
I would have a really tough time at that. Yeah. And, like, exactly what you said, like injuries and stuff, that's okay. But if I started to have, like, a dementia or schizophrenia or something, I don't know if I'd last, because it's so important to me to be able to look at the world or be objective and have the thinking capacity that I feel like I have right now. Yeah, and one thing, and when you're talking before about you have to talk about so many people, that was one of the motivations for this, for Thomas and I do this, to get to talk to so many different people. Because I think one thing that I think is very true is I think everybody has such an awesome story. I think we want to hear what celebrities have to say. We want to hear what world leaders have to say, but they have interesting stories too. But everybody has been through something really important to them. And I think hearing that is so vital because, like you said before, something you've gone through, someone else probably has already. So, and I want to hear that story. And what took someone an unbelievable amount of effort to build a rocket company, I'm talking about Elon Musk, that effort he put in might be the same effort it took someone to have a workout routine. Because your struggles and the things in your life that you overcome, they're only, like, it's your perception of how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone has an awesome story, you know, assuming you've been on this earth a reasonable amount of time. And that's one thing I want to hear. And just like you've got these awesome perspectives and rules that you follow to bring out the best version of you and learn, and people need to hear it. And so this is awesome. I'm so glad you feel that way about talking to so many different people, because that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
with
it's
this.
really frustrating living in Vietnam for the one part that I can't talk to an average person on the street and get their life story.
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk to like the kids who have good English and like people who have good English, but those people who have good English typically aren't the people who are growing up in the lower levels of that society. So
and that's
like,
who you want to hear.
Yeah, and that's who you want to talk to.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
So I had a neighbor who was this old guy we called Mr. Nam, and he was hilarious, like an absolutely hilarious guy. He was like 50s, 60s, just ran this little food cart across the street. But I mean, there'd be days he'd come have drinks with us and he'd just hang out and like he'd try and get some English across. Like,
yeah.
He was in the Vietnam War, like he fought with the Americans, like,
wow.
And just like you get a little bit out of him because he speaks 6 words of English.
Yeah.
But you just imagine what you could hear if you could actually
100%.
talk to him. And it's just, it is frustrating, but at the same time, like, there's so many expats that I'm meeting, people from South Africa and the UK and across Europe, and like getting to have those conversations are kind of making up for it, because I'm still getting those varied views on life from different cultures. So it kind of makes up for it, but at the same time, it is something that frustrates me.
Yeah.
Because I would love to be able to actually speak with the people.
Yeah, but you're getting way more exposure than most people, right? So you got to think of it that way. Like when we were thinking about the name, I threw out the name PeopleX, like, which is a spawn off of SpaceX, which is space exploration. And like, so it'd be like people exploration. So like, that's exactly what I think is really important, is that exploration of different people. And like you said, there's this one guy in Vietnam that, like, he's not on TV or on YouTube, but he probably has some amazing stories that you would learn from, and you want to hear it. Yeah.
Like talk about books again, but my favorite literature is Sherlock Holmes. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote books and 60 short stories or so on just this one character who had these crazy views on life, and he's so logical. Like that's what resonates me from him, is how logical he is. And you look at the ways that, like, body language and the very tiny ways that life fits together and causes certain things to happen. And if you can kind of break that down, he can start to figure things out that other people can't. So just by paying more attention. But he has a quote in it, I think it's in one of the first books, where like Sherlock Holmes just says, if you were to go and open up all the rooftops in London at dinner time, you would find stories that your mind couldn't even begin to think up. Like life is so much more random and crazy than your mind can even think of.
100%. Yeah.
Terrible relay on that quote, but yeah.
No. I'm 100% picking up what you're throwing down. Yeah.
Like, it is just, it's so crazy, all the different things and all the different lives that we lead, and to just think that yours is the only way. Like, and it's just a fundamental thing. Like, I think there is the very first time where you're kind of on a path and something happens and you have to question that, and then if you decide to move off, I think that is like it's a big event. Yeah. And it doesn't always happen, and it doesn't always have to, but it changes everything that you think.
100%.
Because you have to completely just be like, I believed all that stuff before and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And now you have to accept that and just be like, like, it wasn't necessarily wrong, it was wrong for you. And then you just be like, what's right for me? Absolutely. And you start learning things, and it's exciting to find things. Like, the older you get, people start to think like you do the same things over again. You don't find new things you like. But I mean, I started playing new sports. You meet new people. You start new hobbies. Like I said, learning's big for me. So I'm always like, I'm trying to learn language or an instrument or something, like, all the time, because if I stagnate, it's I get in my head and it's it's too much.
That's good.
As I said, there's a war going on up there, so I just avoid that as much as I can.
But that's a really good personality trait to have,
Yeah.
because it gets you to develop who you are and continue that development in the future. There's something my dad said when I was younger that I never understood that I'm starting to understand now. He said, the older I get, the less I know. And I was like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, it's like filling a water container. Like, it's just going to get more full, but the container gets bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still got that finite amount of brain space that
Yeah.
you can, and all mine's like stupid song lyrics, and sports statistics that I'll never use or need to know again.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of these quotes that I love and I've read 6 times and I couldn't tell you what they are.
Yeah. The older you get, for me anyway, that I'm experiencing that, where I'm like, you just realize how little you know, and life is just way more gray than the black and white you thought it was before. Definitely. I think that's one big thing. Like, in my early 20s, I was like so certain about things, like this is the way it is and this is the way that is, but it's just getting grayer and grayer as I get older, including some of my hair is getting grayer too, which sucks, but that's that's neither here nor there. And actually, you know what, I'll ramble a bit here, but Rochelle was on before, and I was telling her I was insecure about getting some gray hairs, and she said, Andrew, aging is a gift, because she's a cancer nurse. Yeah. And just talking about life experiences and experiencing an environment like this and learning from people. I was in the elevator on the way to work, and I looked in the mirror and I found a couple more, and I was like, fuck, like, I'm not even fucking 30. And then I remember hearing her voice in my head, like, aging's a gift, Andrew, like, be happy. And I was like, fucking right. Yeah, I'm not. And I wasn't upset anymore. So what I'm trying to say is, when you get to have all these different experiences and hear these stories and sort of try to expand your thinking, like what you're saying is important to you and what I would like to do, it helps you, because I had that moment of clarity. I was like, what am I so worried about?
Yeah, I think it gives you more of appreciation for like intricacies of life.
Yeah.
And how different it can be and how wonderful it can be. If
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, if you're open to it and you're kind of pushing yourself in different directions that you believe are right at that moment, like they might not be right.
Exactly.
You don't know what you're going to want. So you just got to kind of listen to yourself in the moment, try and live more from day to day rather than thinking about when am I going to retire and that kind of stuff,
exactly.
There's no point thinking
exactly.
about it. Like, our generation's probably not going to retire anyways.
Exactly.
With the fact that the baby boomers are going to be working until they're 70 or 80.
Yeah.
So I don't know when our generation's going to start moving up into those jobs that we need to retire by a certain age, right?
Yeah.
So,
but you know what helps me and probably helps you is, what does it matter?
yeah.
I think that's
so
the big,
far down the road.
Like take the moment,
Yeah.
enjoy the moments in front of you. And like, I think a big thing for me that I'm learning that I was never good at is like just letting go. Like you said, most of the world, you can't control what happens. So just try and control how you react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stress over absolutely every detail. In
You
your life.
could.
It'd be pretty easy to do. Like I've been pretty close before. But, I mean, like you just kind of let that go, and like it gives you an appreciation for just life.
Yeah.
And just like how amazing it can be.
Yeah.
And as long as you are living it with like a little bit of a rational mind that it's not always going to be perfect, and you're going to have to push through certain things in life, then I don't think there's anything you can't overcome. It just takes the right mindset, the right things to do, and it takes hard work. Everything, it's so true. And my parents always told me, and I always just like floated my way through high school and that kind of stuff, not paying attention. They're always like, one day you're gonna have to work really hard for something that you want. And they're like, whether you're working hard now doesn't matter. Like something's gonna come along that you're gonna want, and you're gonna have to work hard to get it. It's not gonna fall in your lap.
Yeah.
And it's so true.
It's
like
100%
anything
true.
that I've actually wanted, you have to work for it. Like that's the way it is.
I completely agree. Those cliches always come back to you, but that's an awesome way of looking at life. Yeah, man. I'm kind of lost for words. This has been awesome. I'll just wrap this up. It's awesome to have you here. You have an awesome view of life. Trish recommended you should talk to Pat, and he's an awesome guy. And I was like, yeah, for sure. I didn't realize like all these awesome experiences you've had, and just this really, my personal opinion, a really mature way of looking at life. It's fantastic. I just get awesome. I always think there's random chaos, but then I'm gonna say that I feel this good energy here. So you have this awesome energy. So I'm just confused. One day I think one thing, the other day I think something else.
Yeah,
so
and you just gotta accept
that's
the way life is gonna be. Yeah.
But no, you have awesome energy, and I think you're gonna have it's just a fulfilling life, because I think you're headed in such a fantastic direction, and you have the courage to do what you want, and I'm just happy for you, man. I think I'm excited because I think the way you speak about things is really awesome. And yeah, I know you're heading overseas again, so I wish you the best. And I'm just glad you came. Thanks.